Hello, species value nature system. New York game. Species coach. This is just with the New York side of it. In other words, this will be with pantheism, which nations will set up to monetize things we can't afford. In other words, with artistic reparations, to afford a nature of reliefs for within the nature reliefs, because the reliefs are greater than what going for the concept semi-nature, semi-complete reliefs movement towards gathering towards going for reparations. So that leaves out the organized crime method that was exploiting and keeping our united volume as a semi-nature relationship to and as an identity with organized crime method as our hierarchy. Its theater, its nature of criminal insidiousness, its nature of uses of that within as lie progression, pseudo-peace. In other words, it's important. In other words, we can monetize this too. You guys know how to do it. You guys keep all the money, for example, for that part of it, with the reparations part, as conceived as semi-nature with a whole bunch of other natures of relief stacking, natures of release simultaneous. Because we're a simultaneous nature that is being exploited. We don't have, and we have the motivations for it originally still. We have evidence reception. Experts use each science maintained victim predators with experience too, with theater upon that everyone can't fathom, because this was what really the overt criminal enterprises originally and still were used for. See, all jobs are, and this value nature system that not by accident can't defend itself as integrity without being defensive in value of the theft of our founders' history, and the guys forced them and everyone in theater, criminal insidiousness nature, theater roles, because each of the nations were identities of legal nature jobs that were lie progressions. Lie progression cover-up natures needing to hurt. Correlation natures simultaneously inherent active and progressive means, which is the identity that is inseparable from its own nature as our own. Where and how we're in a semi-nature relationship to it no matter what. See, now we're a semi-nature relationship to a semi-ancient invention that is negative value nature tactically. To keep all defending victim predator, okay, it's a small word, all we can do, as positive, invested, justifying that, fake morality, limits on it, roles with and as, where and how. The important thing to understand about the organized crime that uses color is to understand how it exploits our volume, us as a volume, as identity nature. In other words, I have a good point there. But so this is how we are in nature of volume. I forgot what I was just talking about. The point I was going to connect, because everything is connected. But in other words, this is what I'm trying to say. For the Halloween game, we can only trick ourselves in relationship to Santa Claus too. What really gifts, what this is really about, and in relationship to the only capable of being Thanksgiving value. Del means Thanksgiving. A hymn de la la. A hymn. Now, we won't get into that, but in other words, this is about, there are things our languages share, our fact treatment nature, our treatments of each of the sciences, convictions and fact treatment natures, and with a relationship to positive is not pseudo-positive overall. And when people aren't being allowed to report crime acts, and then people are just making opinions and dishonest, that being coupled with overtly forged names, interbranch, intercampuses, and how motivated, maintained, all victim predators. See, this was facilitated originally to keep all only capable of blaming others and other things in themselves, rightfully and wrongfully, for what was really causing forced negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Motivations to sequence shifts, identity thefts of other natures of crimes. When you're being a hack with the interpretation of real communications and of past communications and of databases, information integrity, then you need to hide that. So they're motivated. That's why we need to switch colors for the thing. We can afford a whole bunch of different natures of reliefs as gaming our volume caring for ourselves. Not because of color. I'll tell you something though. There are people being used. See, because then what is interbranch, internatures of courts preventing crime acts from being reported in collusion with the police? They're using wire crime methods, mail crime rolls, the same way they were originally. And this was facilitated specifically as a fact cheap nature racket to extensive extents, not just with color, witch trials, all liar, fake positives, invested to defenses of that, with and as a nature of precedence, forced, engineered so sickly, vastly, specifically to come out of that, keep that. They knew we were going to come out of that. That was set. That's part of the trap. Therefore, they knew each modern nation, each identity of legal nature would have to value that, and how overall nations have states and areas, opinion natures, conviction natures, all haters, all hurt victim predators, all pretending other as criminal insidious natures too. All motivated as sequence shifting nature styles, as delusion propagated intersciences, victim predators. Also off campuses and off campuses, crime method maintained, keeping each individual grouped together progressively, sequentially, victim predators. That and how and why we have parents that are male and female is to see that how our nature is a trinity. Not just overall, but in and as all parts of itself. That's why our cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, that trinity repeats. They talk about the Fibonacci numbers. The trinity repeats. That trinity has a value/value nature relationship to itself. Zero repeats. See how easy it is? 1 times 10. I mean, it's 10, but I mean, 9 times 10, 90. Add 1 0. 89 times 10, 890. Add 1 0. 89 times 100, 8,900. Add 2 zeros because we add on 100. It's easy to do that because the zeros before 1 and after 1 at 10, before 1, before 0, and after 1 at 10, they're inseparable from each other. as this identity's, as a forever nature's inseparable relationship from itself, as a nature of volume that we are a semi-nature of. And it has a complete nature of reaction to itself that is simultaneously unceasing, temporary positive. But that is also further and simultaneously as temporary / lasting positive or negative. Negative too is a nature of positive. In where the Trinity is two natures of positive, two natures of polarity, and one semi-nature that is with that volume at the same time as an increasing amount of it. While it increases, it's increasing too. In other words, not just your body's value is bigger than this. This is, we come to the halo. Jesus Christ. There's a picture on Yale's website of his, like from semi-ancient times, a picture of Jesus Christ with the halo behind him. He's got capital A in English written on the right side of the halo. And he's got capital W written on the left side of the halo. See, Alpha, he says, Jesus Christ says, he is the Alpha, he is the Omega. This is cipher, meaning he couldn't speak correct. I mean, he couldn't speak substantially on what he knew that already since before modern religions. Already the Campus Marcius was criminally re-engineered. Identities of legal nature were already criminally re-engineered. Criminally foreign influence states and areas roles. Victim predators reliant upon pseudo-positive natures of, as criminal insidiousness natures in relationship to an organized crime method that not only juxtaposed natures of criminal insidiousness with ulterior motivations, natures, needs and roles, valuing styles of life, abridged fact-treatment nature, abridged constitution, forced physical delusion. If they know that they gave us the surface values of the Constitution in Marbury versus Madison, so we can defend ourselves against predatory various natures of courts and their family members, maintain the victim predator weapons with all that juxtaposed with them. Per a method maintaining originally a whole bunch of people motivated from a minority as the majority, hurting everyone, preventing counters to what is recorded worse than pseudosciences regarding correlation by why and how we're in recorded criminally foreign influence zoning laws associated with the recorded identity thefts of our founders in our face, glorified. How that is recorded, forced, exploited. There are proofs that V for Victory was both forced rightfully by what was associated with and as the value of our founders, still abridged, forced to hide their roles with the Constitution. In other words, forced to hide it by staying language that they wouldn't have stayed. Fact, cheap, and nature quality that they wouldn't have stayed. In other words, people were writing their identity, forcing it. So then they could discern who was going to try to come out of the trap. And then they knew they wouldn't be able to do it forever. So they had it this way so everyone will get locked into what we're all locked into now, suits and ties counters that are all making the same mistakes and they're all being exploited. States and areas were facilitated to this specifically for and as a fact-cheap nature racket to keep collusion of interbranch and private tied to that, and a whole bunch of other nations hurt there and here by the same people as fake sides and fact-cheap nature quality, where with the Trade Center and where other nations' equivalents and lack of it, which is everywhere, is being blamed on other things, on others, not themselves. Not one person is let to demonstrate how everyone's a victim predator of what was facilitated from semi-ancient times before the founding of our nation's founders. To obfuscate this, they know ahead of time they have to hide the identity thefts of Mao Zedong, of our founding fathers, how they were forced to alliances with sick, still left in trend. Think about this too. See, were they trying to test if someone's reading or not? That narrative, allowing that excuse with the sciences, that's tied to what's keeping our branches criminally foreign influenced, hiding live progressions. So if you need to tell on this, they're lying in the background, setting people up, and they already have been. So they're not letting crime acts reported. They're forging names and pretending conversations so they can pretend people have grandiose allegations. Because while they're doing this, they're stacking crimes that makes people have to demonstrate more and more demonstrated criminal uses of each of the people's sensibilities with areas. They're forcing an abridged fact-sheeping nature, pseudo-positive rules with each age of fact-sheeping nature. From off-campuses, on-off campuses, maintained, motivated, to and as roles with crime methods bonded by a completely as fact-sheeping nature racket roles. Why we haven't been allowed to demonstrate the organized crime method, simple but only extensive, that forced slavery used, that forces evidence reception as fake care, as fake discernment of quality of fact-sheeping nature, forcing offensive. That's what you're with the offensive evidence reception predators, interbranch, with all that tied to slavery, witch trials, the psychology, and the prisons with that, forcing drugging people, making that up with those doctors in prison cliques, and recorded and confessed, with on-off campuses, crime roles, as victim predators with all kinds of natures. What they call legally, but for personal and misprision, criminal foreign influence, all juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises, but they're really being used for. They're keeping everyone knave, fact-sheeping natures, blaming on others and others themselves. Why and how? There's no real science, and everyone's pretending to be science because mandated law is not used. We have the agencies recorded using Me Too movement, using pretended care for jobs and things like that. For example, tactical degradation of our treatments of words like nature. Because this is a fact-sheeping nature obligations we have as a quality of fact-sheeping nature that are being prevented by offensive physical delusions and sensibilities, criminal foreign influence, per criminal uses of all spots with areas. There's a space. Now, but not just outer space, now it's there too, because it's tied to databases too. Crime methods with this, all bonded by one. That keeps all negative, all invested, needing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Then you get in trouble in court and stuff like. Do they have it so sick? Offensively, you're going to say whatever, because they're offensively preventing the right to be presumed innocent. They're preventing the right. And see, they're using that criminally by preventing mandated crime acts so they can force mistreatments of issues and cases that they're recorded using crime methods that were facilitated to keep all victims. Forgiveness is in relationship to this, because in other words, correlations, identity as our nature of volume, we can discern how courts that are even entertaining their treatments of things like a color with this, even now. And racism. That's because they have each body covering the lie progressions of fake integrity, of criminally foreign influence uses of branches already in collusion with areas and with networks that couldn't fathom how the only realized sophistication it was engineered to stay reliant upon pseudo-sophistication and upon real sophistications inherited with that, feared, hated, formally breaching roles, tortured off, killed off, in identity theft. We have identity theft interbranch actors and roles with victim predator reactions with a crime method that starts at the youngest ages and stays through time, making confessions with interbranch already since before, just playing out what they have. They need to make and keep the perfect world unfathomed while they're pretending to be believers, etc. While they're keeping the religions categorically worse than obfuscated, specifically to keep how they're non-distinctly fluent through and as the fact-cheaping nature value of each area and state and of each modern nation, fake sides. That's all they need that to be defended, and that can't adapt to what it needs to adapt to without being reliant upon what keeps them getting out of this as fact-cheaping nature racket role natures that need to hide themselves overall. And that's where and how, when they're not letting mandate, they're forcing individuals who can see in criminally foreign influences, branches, and collusion. If they try to speak it, they sense that. Because they're a value nature transfer. It's an identity of negative value nature transfer. So it's important that we can monetize this. This is how you afford reparations, not through systems that are sick, that are in collusion with what did that. Not through movements that the defense of obfuscates, screens, and exploits and values as fact-cheap in nature. What force divided? What force exploits it right now? Fake care, simultaneous torture, hurt, lies, lie progressions, blaming on other and valuing of having been blamed on other and stuff like that. The real causes for pseudo-education, shootings in areas systemic, tied to the same actors, minority, interbranch, and psychology, especially since founding. Physical delusions, propagation, intersciences, roles, uses, inter-nations that hate each other on paper. They have the same crime methods, recorded acts, and crime roles recorded. For example, it completely has fact-cheaping nature rackets, offensive, evidence reception, predators, fakes, facilitated to it and maintained facilitated to it, specifically as styles, roles, and natures need, pretending the law has to be blamed on someone. In other words, instead of fixing the crime acts, pretending they don't see crime acts, sequence shifts, and in the background having narratives about the perfect world as sick predators, worse than the kids growing up, even as men and stuff like that, with guns shooting each other, and the real motivations, natures, needs, and roles for it, as only that realized standing, juxtaposed, valued, all kinds of different people that don't know each other, facilitated, needed to hide the same finite active body of value and progressive lies. Identity theft crimes roles, sequence shift crime roles, criminal roles with criminal uses of campuses, inter-campuses, areas, inter-jobs, inter-natures of industries, and worse than interstate. and worse than just tied to crimes with the Pentagon, with the Trade Center, and with Washington, D.C., with criminal justice programs, with crimes with criminal uses of a tiger cubs, with a Walters family that had me. They have a thing where you go and you watch, and everyone's in the place. Then some other parent comes up to you and says, "Hey, come over. We'll make the car that goes down the tiger cubs ramp. At my house, I have a shop." The father, when I was in tiger cubs, that kid never went to a school to meet Chris Walters and his brothers, three or four brothers and a sister, and a wife, and her extended family involved, intercity criminally involved, with CCSU tied to crime acts roles, with cases also in Washington, D.C., as demonstrable through the reported crime acts roles with federal criminals, and with the former director of the FBI's direct and indirect roles, with a Ninth Circuit case in Washington, D.C., with a proven sequence shift in a part of the case, /S, tied to that in Ninth Circuit Trade Center attack context the night before. Same actors, like with the Sklar family, recorded and confessed involved with all the various natures of crimes, with police forms from Weathersfield, interbranch city, intercampuses through time. This is maintaining unrealized family members, stuff like that, all in a trap as a method that is having people speak through others, and really what is furthering the drugs problems, like with a Dillon family. A lot of people associated with a two-route highway, and with I don't know the names of them, a Victorian house, and a Sal Civiello, and an Enzo Fienzo, recorded and confessed with various natures of crime acts roles with the private police and fire departments involved with Russians and stuff like that, criminally involved with doctors and nurses, with drugs with the kids, and crimes and cases, crimes with evidence, perception, interbranch, they're forging names, switching names, various natures of drug crime roles, property thefts, extortion methods recorded, not just extortion acts, sequence shifts hiding this, pretending people are making grandiose allegations while stacking crime acts roles, sequence shifting. They did this with treatments, with and as their value of their treatments of Comey and of Director Comey and of Mueller, and of the quality of the FBI, recorded criminally foreign influence originally and still. We never had one modern nation competent regarding uses of color today. That's not our means. That's what means these fake, recorded criminally foreign influence and delusion-wrought fake sciences say they could afford. For the Marxist positions, recorded criminally foreign influence and exploited by means, needs, and natures only capable of blaming the causes of it on other things or others than themselves. All victim predators to spots. That's one of the reasons why we need to have the law, that you can't pretend with education that you're trying to make sure people are doing the reading, and then they verbally bring up things like Jim Crow laws. They're playing games that are missed too, with uses of the interbranch and medical families and ones like with the databases. See, they're being kept as victim predators, recorded off campuses, influenced, mistreatments of facts, that they're told how to treat the issues with each kid, and they're tied to each family, each person, each position of fact, nature, each individual group together progressively and sequentially. They're recorded criminally, needing to lie, with criminal natures, needing to hide their natures from. They need to steal the identities of people who point this out, because I'm talking about crime acts, sequence shifts, fake news. Crime acts stole my identity, fake conversation. Did that with my parents still. I mean, did that with my parents, my family members. They have conversations when they fake things. They're forcing family members into conversations about things they have no clue about, because I never spoke with them, because I knew what they were doing, because it was recorded, demonstrated, confessed through time. They have sustained identity theft crimes, lies to even family members, making, in other words, like magic tricks, making people doing things that they are unfathomable, because there's so many natures of crimes juxtaposed, like the two Mendez police brothers. Never had a conversation with the Janito Mendez. He was nice with his face when he was recorded. So they had people walk by someone one time, and that's used in the background so they can pretend to perceive things that they don't really perceive, because they're with crimes with databases and with cases already through time, and with the prisons, with them criminally with the area. There's a woman with right hair who confirmed non-verbally that also recorded and confessed to crime rolls with three corners associated with Russian families, and with a school with a principal sex offender, and with Anthony Yagman and Joshua Julia, with crime rolls with more of them recorded with a New Britain Superior Court. In criminal with a Joe DeMauro, a whole bunch of people. A Joe DeMauro, a Chris Walters, Eric Jensen too, with houses in my area. See, now people that only know me through them. And this is someone criminally involved with federal criminals, recorded and confessed and demonstrated through time, associated federal criminals that were co-defendants of former director of the FBI. In a 2006 case, where the police associated with that case, interbranch, were crime acts against me through time. In other words, not crime rolls, not letting that reported, how they're exploiting systems and pretending integrity and stealing our identities with fake news, inter-Connecticut networks, recorded criminally foreign influence, fake influence sources, interbranch, and the ones with them with that. And they're making up that too. And they know that because they're influenced. The former director of the FBI, this came first. Before their treatments of Mueller and of Comey, recorded criminal through that. Recorded criminal with the principal sex offender tied to Moore, with his campus and with other campuses of each age and intercity tied through this. Because this is exploitations of systems that are off the records, while we have off the records ones that are really off the record for legitimate reasons or whatever, that are being, that because we don't know about that, they're pretending that is what we're talking about. Pretending. They're recorded that because they're not letting the crime acts reported. They're not correcting the fake news crime acts of juxtaposed natures in the same articles. They know this is criminal seriousness. This is also people associated with a scuba shack and with the New Britain Superior Court that Rick Champfillon also recorded, confessed, a complete stranger to me, after he graduated high school. He was involved, and when I knew him in grammar school, he was recorded and confessed and demonstrated involved with confessions that two O'Brien families brothers sought me out to demonstrate, record, and confess about their parents' roles with offensive evidence perception crime methods, acts, and natures associated with, in other words, I believe he said, I don't know, congressional or whatever like that, and police forms associated with his family, with intercity police through time, and police forms and cliques associated criminally with forensics labs and inter-police forms associated that with Phil Clough was also recorded and confessed involved with Sandy Hook, doctors in this family. This family's extended family criminally involved. Also, they demonstrated, confessed, and recorded that their roles being what are those people called? We're in the church where they serve, they help out. See, but this is being used to keep the campuses and all the religions as victim predators, relying upon as sensibility natures, relying upon insidious people like Tim O'Brien, demonstrated, confessed, and recorded, involved with criminal uses of each age of fact treatment nature women in my area, by women involved, interbranch, retired, and standing through time and privatized to them, criminally involved with the sex offenders cliques, further criminally involved with them. And that's with doctors, foreign and domestic, and with drug crimes as doctors, with badges also juxtaposed with their overt drugs, but not for what they're really pretending. See, they have, sometimes all they need is someone to walk by you that you don't even know, so they can pretend to perceive things that that aren't real, and so they can pretend not to realize their recorded criminal uses of all the locations in Wethersfield and intercity through time, with the same minority keeping recorded, effectively maintained, interbranch, criminally foreign influenced, fact cheating nature, qualities and styles against mandate, preventing crime acts from being reported, and then pretending that people make grandiose allegations by preventing the subject from being about those crime acts, by forging names and by switching names, and by making confessions interbranch, and then using that time to attach people interbranch to fake conversations in collusion with the recorded names, forging names interbranch, fake arresting officers into databases, as crime acts rolls with proven sex offenders that they forced first. So there's a whole bunch of recorded natures of juxtaposed crimes. And since before that, before I lived on Covington Street, that place was recorded and confessed involved with the people that from my area criminally involved with when I was there. I didn't know they were there then. And then they made the confessions afterwards. They're making confessions afterwards. So then when the person tries to talk about it, they're pretending they're talking that we knew things that we didn't. So in other words, this is tied to them having time used to make quick fake pretended care towards quality fact cheating nature in cases and with rights. In other words, with Me Too. They're pretending that stands for mandate because they can't take mandate, because they've been with users of jails and of databases for means and methods sicker than most killers, which are these kids that are growing up as victim predators through schools that are also victim predator reactions to off campuses maintained, criminally foreign influenced, all identities of legal nature, defenses of that reliant upon pseudo-care natures. This is life progression, cover-up nature, states and areas, styles, as fake integrity natures, as only let realized, child abuse branches, fake branches, hiding the seed, hiding what Marbury versus Madison really needs to be defended too, hiding their crime methods in jails. I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. Hiding, but they're recorded, using jails to hide with crime roles in collusion with evidence perception, crime methods, preventing people from reporting crime acts and crime methods. And this is forcing that sustained while it is discerned. They're forcing and needing fights between people and formal government and all that insidious with that. Because, in other words, they need people that bring the problems before the courts or to the police, because the courts and the police are recorded criminally foreign influence already. They're individuals that group together and progressively, sequentially, criminally foreign influence states and areas. Styles of judgment that can't be defended in us at the same time. Repeating the same demonstrated liars on all sides of color issues. Like people pretend that they're white, pretend it comes down to who owns land and stuff like that. They're not being honest with themselves and with others. They're not being honest with the means that are here, that no one can deny without demonstrating lies, delusions, criminal foreign influences, and worse. That's all rehearsed. So the Halloween, you guys can leave it hollow. You could only the entire species value. Anyone who wants to play the New York game, this is for the pantheism too, but especially New York, because you're part of it, is also, once we get the 5 boroughs locked in, someone's gonna represent them. We're gonna make them own something that's also going to be owned where the money is not going to be playing the same value nature system. We're gonna force this to lift the bottom to a higher standard than even the suburbs, and simultaneously forcing that standard with the suburbs from the tactically denatured base and uses of that. We have a tactically denatured relationship to nature, a purely native thing, identity, as the perfect value progression, as our semi-nature relationship to that, and our semi-nature relationship to this forced identity of negative value nature progression, not let demonstrated, criminally foreign influence. So there are proofs that now that they're right that V stands for victory, not value, even though everything is value as nature, what anything existing is, even if it's the nature only of a bond, non-living things, like sayings. I take things. I forgot what I was going to say. Too many pray. And many prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed. Here every day. See, this way, all the negative semi-nature becomes valuable and as a tool. That's what it's for. Every nature is there's only positive nature. As negative value nature, as positive value nature, as the complete identity, which is simultaneously a little bit more of a semi-nature. If you're male or female, it's not just as the other sex. It's just not just as the value of parents and of kids and of each age of Oz. But negative value nature Oz since semi-ancient times just reminds. So we have people that they know they need to pretend and have influence to, as recorded, to pretend that to be hurt by religion, and they keep that multi-front while they need people to be helped by it wrong, because they need the Constitution used by it to be defended faith. Al Rawls defending and valuing defenses of quality of fact, treatment, nature, in relationship to religion, in fact, and convictions, and opinions. They can't defend in us at the same time. You can't defend without hiding lies, physical delusions, premises, sequence shifts, actually natures, and recorded. And they're doing this when someone tries to say it, they write other into databases. It's a torture method. It's worse than a torture method, but that is also recorded their conscious motivations for the pseudo care when they tricked us into being shock and awe, using that phrase. That was a coalition that was of and as a nature and identity of value that was entrenched here since before our founders, controlling what is intermilitary, interbranch states and areas of collusion. As much as it was to counter that from inside, it was still captive, criminally foreign influence. And this is how. Completely as a fact treatment nature racket. So by hurrying up and believing and doing it, there's nothing to not believe. We'll make black and white. And we'll make that, we can make a website. And that can be owned completely for reparations, just for that part of it. And that too, with means stacked upon, with simultaneous natures of relief, where and how, and as and how, where a united volume that is beaten because it's forcing us to be divided. Not just physically. If we care for our physical bodies over our fact sheet nature positions, that's negative value nature progressions. They're using black bodies interbranch in their kids through time. Crimes with these KKK and Confederate flag. Crimes in cases. Interstate. Then I never knew that Chris Walters again until high school. He recorded and confessed, sought me out to make, and with other people he's involved with on each side of the high school, and involved criminally with interbranch families from other schools that were in collusion with drugs and stuff like that, with the police forms, with Anthony Agwin, with Mike DeMaine, criminally involved already before they were in my algebra class. I had nothing to do with them. And Congressman Larson's relative was in that class, which was repeated in and out of the class. Repeated in the class, repeated out of the class too. Demonstrated, in other words, that Congressman Larson was being lied to, shown illusions categorically through influences with Anthony Agman and with Fred Grisey. Anthony Agman went to my school. Fred Grisey lived right in front of the school, but he didn't go to my school. And he's criminally involved with probate judges. Spread rumors about me and stuff like that against what they do. Also, the one exception, I went to that Mike DeMaine's house for a real quick second. It was like set up per a Mayano family, also recorded and confessed involved interbranch crimes with crime rolls with fake news crime acts of various natures. Those were our crime acts rolls with a principal sex offender. They used that to force sustain before he was caught for such other as that. With more recorded and confessed and demonstrated with the schools, tied to programs of it, relationships with doctors and policing, foreign and domestic, in collusion with overt criminal enterprises, crime methods, and roles, spreading rumors, and having others speak through others at each age. The way they're exploiting life progressions. Women with children now recorded being used in the background, influenced as sensibility natures and relationships to facts. They're taken out of context and forcing as strangers, forcing to pretend other, where they can't do it on paper or in court legally. So they're trying to make other natures of crime acts, counters that are forced or forced ignored and exploited either way, which is a crime method they're doing against each age of fact sheet nature. Which is a method, especially leaving all kids accosted except for the ones who are tied to databases, relationship families, like social workers. You know, as victims, but as victim predators from off campuses influence fact treatments, sequence treatments of the values of kids. Because we have recorded physical delusions and all kinds of criminal methods and influences over psychologists, foreign and domestic, like with Russia, like with the Wethersfield police chief, with criminally involved with Italy, and with houses in my area criminally involved with the Dillon family, and with those on 2 Route Highway, with the Sal Cerviello, and with the Fienza family recorded and confessed criminally involved with fake news crime acts and foreign and domestic military and medical corruption with houses in my area, police forms in my area, also recorded and confessed and demonstrated with crime acts roles, with crime acts of overt criminal enterprises, criminal insidiousness natures. And where and as and how the borough's book in the New York game is a counter to how we have recorded each modern nation's organized crime countering bodies, criminally foreign influence delusions rock. Fake, mandate rackets, identity theft rackets that hold on and will steal your life if you try to do it, and worse. And that's not by accident, let's all rehearse. So in other words, we just keep stacking means. In other words, just to train ourselves as a volume together to counter the black and all that with the wish as a simultaneous nature. Not to counter our treatments of each other, but to counter our fact treatments. Not towards sensibilities overall, because that's what's being exploited, that's what's being forced. Quality of fact treatment nature as knaves, where everyone's dishonest together, which is recorded. The same fake. When you see the KKK people in the news, and then the different kind of, they pretend this is real life. That's all recorded and confessed, involved victim predators. We have the identity of the branches individually grouped together as an identity as a lie progression cover-up nature. Lie progressions, finite, body of value discernment progressively, identity discernment. We have fake breaching scream, fake patriotism natures. People that are heroes and other in contexts where they're great, where they give for without thinking for their country, but that we need what thinks. This needs the other. This was since before our George Washington and our founders, James Madison, were born. This was entrenched here. A whole bunch of nations juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises, specifically as a method keeping all odds invested, propagated, valuing the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures.